You know, nothing gets messier than work drama. And that's why today I've compiled for you some Reddit stories regarding the messiest work drama. Today, we've got a wide array of Reddit stories. I've got some from Am I the Asshole to hot takes, relationship advice. We got a broad range for you going into this Reddit video today. But before I dive in, I should introduce myself. Hi, my name's Erin. I'm a licensed therapist and I love analyzing all things pop culture. I am drinking a hot latte today. It's a little cloudy, a little overcast, cold spring day. I don't know if you can really call this spring yet, but anywho, cheers, grab a drink, let's dive in. This is a really interesting one because I think this is a huge term in pop culture right now, and we should talk about it. Okay. Am I the asshole for uninviting my fiance's work wife from our wedding? I, 29 female, am supposed to be marrying the love of my life, 31 male, in a few months. We've been planning this wedding for over a year, and it's been a beautiful but stressful experience. But there's one person casting a shadow over everything, and that's my fiance's work wife, Lily, female, 30. Let me backtrack a little. My fiance and Lily have been friends and coworkers for around 5 years. At first, I was honestly relieved he had a good friend at work, especially since his job can be demanding and a bit isolating. I tried to be the cool and understanding partner who wasn't bothered by how close they were, but over time, their bond became, well, it became something I just don't know how to handle. Lily is a huge part of his life. They text constantly, often late into the night, about everything from work issues to little jokes. She knows things about him that I sometimes don't, and it stings to realize how much he turns to her for advice and laughs instead of me. My fiance reassures me that they're just friends, that she's his work wife, and that it's no big deal. But it feels like she's gotten so close that sometimes I'm the one on the outside looking in. As we got deeper into wedding planning, Lily started chiming in with her opinions. She had suggestions about our venue. It doesn't feel like him. Our flowers. He's never liked bright colors, remember? And even my dress, mentioning offhandedly that she knew his style and could come help me pick out something he'd love. I tried to laugh it off, but it hurt more than I wanted to admit. Here I am planning my wedding, and I felt like I had to measure up to her view of who my fiance is. Last week was our engagement party, and it was supposed to be such a happy day, but I kept noticing Lily glued to his side. I tried to join their conversations, but every time she'd bring up a work story or an inside joke that left me feeling like the third wheel at my own engagement. Then, in one of the worst moments, I walked up just as she was saying, "You know, if you change your mind, you could always marry me instead." My heart sank. I didn't know if she was joking or half serious, but my fiance laughed, brushing it off like it was no big deal. I'm sorry. What? Oh my God, if I heard that. Oh my God. Okay. Ooh, we continue. We press on. I couldn't just let it go. I pulled my fiance aside later that night and I told him how inappropriate her comment was. He looked at me surprised and said, I was taking it too seriously. Oh, heck no. And Lily was just playing around. I felt like I was going crazy. Like maybe I was seeing something that wasn't there, but how would anyone be okay hearing that from someone so close to their fiance? The last straw came towards the end of the night. Lily had had a few drinks, came up to me asking if I was really okay with how close they were. She said something like, I can't imagine him with anyone else. It felt like a knife to my chest. I wanted to scream, but instead I just walked away. Later, I told my fiance I didn't want her at our wedding, that it was too painful to have someone there who clearly saw herself as a part of our relationship. He got defensive, saying I was overreacting and letting jealousy ruin a friendship he cherishes. He even implied that uninviting her would be damage to his reputation at work and how he's barely talking to me because I'm making him choose between his best friend and his fiance. A little speechless here, but okay. I don't know what to think anymore. I feel hurt, small, and I feel like my feelings don't matter. My friends support me, but his friends think I'm overreacting and letting insecurity ruin our relationship. Am I the one blowing this up, or am I right to want some respect and boundaries? Am I the asshole for asking him to uninvite her from our wedding after everything that's happened? Ooh, okay, all right. That is some wild. Okay, immediately off the bat, we've got some emotional infidelity, we've got blurred boundaries, and definitely an impact of the work-wife dynamic on this relationship. All right, let's talk about the term work-wife really quick. I don't personally like this term. I don't like the term work-husband. I just think it's inappropriate unless both parties are individually single. Then no harm, no foul. You're not hurting anyone, whatever. Call your friend at work your work wife and vice versa. As soon as there is some romantic relationship from either party, I think that's when you get into really dangerous territory. I think it makes sense to bond with people at your work and your job. Like you're gonna bond over shared inside jokes or stressful events that you had to go through together. So that's normal. It's normal to create bonds and friendships at work. However, something that does make romantic relationships unique from other relationships is exclusivity and emotional intimacy. Both of which her fiancé was portraying with Lily. The exclusivity of all their inside jokes, their work drama, her ability to make him laugh, and very clearly their emotional intimacy they shared because she knows him so well. I would venture to say there's some emotional infidelity happening here. And I think also, if I had to guess, I think that Lily is probably competing for his emotional loyalty. She's texting him late at night. She's giving unwanted input into their entire wedding planning experience, which is a very intimate and personal experience. And she's constantly laughing with him or sharing jokes with him that exclude the original poster. So my guess is she's probably also competing for that emotional loyalty. And if we didn't have those examples, then we'd be like, okay, maybe not. But guess what she says? Maybe you can marry me instead. I can't imagine him with anyone else. I mean, that is like textbook emotionally boundary crossing. It's pretty clear she's probably in love with your fiance. And like, yes, Lily is a large part of the issue here. The other large part of the issue is her fiance's response, or lack thereof. He immediately shuts down the conversation and then turns it so that her emotional response becomes the issue, not the actual issue itself, which is also just a form of gaslighting. He is emotionally manipulating her to make her feel crazy for seeing things, even though they're very valid concerns and very valid asks to have some boundaries in this relationship. And my concern is that it sounds like, just based on this post, Lily's behavior for, I think, kind of latching on to him and trying to get him to be emotionally loyal to her has only increased since they've been engaged and started this wedding planning experience. So imagine her response when they actually get married and make that commitment to one another. A healthy relationship is built on trust and respect and clear boundaries. And those are things that he is not portraying at all. She cannot trust that he's going to like communicate with her in an appropriate way. He's not respecting her when she brings up her concerns, and he's not putting in any boundaries when she's also addressing those concerns. Ultimately, like, this request to uninvite her from the wedding, it's not irrational. Based on all this information and the boundaries that are being crossed, it's pretty clear that it makes sense that she wouldn't want somebody that is actively disrespecting her relationship at her wedding. And the fact that he is more concerned about his work and the response from that than he is about his wedding and his wife's or fiance's response shows that he's prioritizing his work relationships over her. It's pretty cut and dry. And don't even get me started on his idea that she is making him choose. It shouldn't even be a choice. It shouldn't even be something that he has to think twice about. If you are making a lifetime commitment to a person, then it should just be that person, right? They should just be the forefront of your mind and easy to choose, so to speak, even though there shouldn't even be a choice here. It's so manipulative. And again, him trying to turn around the situation and be like, You're in the wrong. How dare you make me choose? She's not making you choose. She's making you make a rational commitment to her. This request to uninvite her is not about jealousy. It's about emotional boundaries and self-respect. I really hope that she can understand what she's asking for is not crazy. It is so valid. It is actually really important that she asks for these things in order to start a healthy relationship and foundation in her marriage. And I hope that she can recognize that she deserves to have somebody immediately recognize that those things are okay to ask for and validate her, and also apologize for making her feel crazy or crossing emotional boundaries that she shouldn't be crossing, or that he shouldn't be crossing. Let's read some comments. This is a top comment, got 6,000 upvotes. Not the asshole, but to be honest, it sounds like the two of them are having an emotional affair. Her comments are completely inappropriate, and your fiance's willingness to side with her and choose her over you is hugely concerning. I can absolutely predict on the day of your wedding, she's going to try to insert herself into everything. It sounds like there's a level of jealousy here, and based on what she did at your engagement party, this is going to escalate on the day you get married. And then you can likely look forward to a future of her inserting herself into your relationship. The home you buy, your children, and your husband is going to keep allowing this to happen. You need to ask yourself if you can live with the throuple. Which I do think there's some validity to that. Like I was saying, if this is her response now when they're only engaged, imagine it's escalation once she's actually married to him. And it's pretty clear this Lily character really is interested in her fiance. I think that's safe to say. Another comment. It's got 2,000 upvotes. Girl, he already chose and he didn't pick you. Yeah. Not the asshole. I have a few very good male besties. One of them got married about a year ago. I would never dream of behaving like this to his now wife. Honestly, you don't have a work-wife problem. You have a fiance problem. That got 16,000 upvotes. What a mess that one is. What a mess. Let's move on to another story. I found messages on my mother-in-law / boss's computer that changed my entire view of her. What do I do? This is advice needed, and this comes from 2 Hot Takes. I listen to 2 Hot Takes literally every week, and this happened to me a couple days ago. I've been at a loss of what to do, so I figured I should finally make a Reddit account and post here. I work at my husband's family business that builds custom homes. I met my mother-in-law when she came into the design firm I worked at to pick out some options for a client. She and I hit it off, and after she'd come in a few times, she set me up with her son. Fast forward 7 years, and I coordinate all the builds and consult with clients on design for the 50-plus-year-old family business. It's pretty cool. Good gig. My mother-in-law is technically my boss, but we operate a lot like equals, and she's been taking some steps back. She and I have always gotten along great, and she has felt like the mother I never got to have growing up. So, last Friday, I was packing up to go home, and I was on the phone with my husband before he got a flight for an annual weekend away with some friends. I was distracted and accidentally grabbed my mother-in-law's computer instead of mine. I didn't realize it until I was home, and I wanted to look up some fixtures for a project in our house. Once I knew, I texted her to let her know, to which she said, no worries, and she was unplugging, quote unquote, this weekend anyway, and to do whatever I needed to do. Oh boy. I was just browsing and unintentionally clicked on a linked email on a store's contact page. We use MacBooks, and as a lot of Apple users know, that will usually pop up to send an email from a default mail app. On a side note, that is like the most annoying feature because I don't use the mail app on my Mac, but anytime you click on an email, that email thing pops up like you want to email someone. I digress. I closed the draft, and then I went to close her email app when I saw an email from a recently hired apprentice titled, Our Weekend Getaway Itinerary. I froze. I realized this was her personal email, and I couldn't help myself, but I clicked on it. I found both explicit and romantic messages between this 22-year-old male apprentice and my 47-year-old married mother-in-law and boss. I slammed the computer shut and just went to bed, staring at the ceiling for quite a while. My husband was gone all weekend and only got home today. I had been spiraling all weekend on how to handle this. I certainly wasn't going to bring it up to my husband while he was gone, but I went to the office and had to see my mother-in-law yesterday and could barely keep my composure. I found every excuse to lock myself away in my office and be busy. So now my husband is back and I'm wondering, what do I do? Do I tell him? How do I even do that if I do tell him? Do I go to his mom and confront her, or do I go to his dad and tell him? Help. Oh, my friend. Oof. Nobody wants to find their mother-in-law's affair through email or text or just in general. Okay, it makes sense to me. This is a very deeply distressing situation. This affects so many areas of her life. This is not just, oh, I found out my mother-in-law is having an affair. This is, I found out my boss, who's I'm also really close to, who I also view as a mother, is having an affair, and that's going to affect my relationship with my husband, the relationships in the family, my work relationships, my work in general. This is very, very impactful. It makes sense to me that her immediate response was avoidance and shock. Like, you cannot expect this poster to immediately go and confront her. Like, this is going to take some time to absorb and kind of parse out what makes sense to actually do here. I mean, this entire realization challenges her perception of her mother-in-law, the stability of her workplace, and her role in her relationship and family. Those are three huge things at stake here. If we break down betrayal, we can kind of look at her new cognitive dissonance with her mom, or her mother-in-law, I should say, because she viewed her as a mom. And cognitive dissonance is just this idea of the things that we believe, the things we perceive about a person or a subject, and the values that we hold versus what that thing actually presents itself to be. So she viewed her mother-in-law as somebody like trustworthy and loyal, and now her mother-in-law is proving to be otherwise, and she's going to be grappling with that dissonance for a while. On top of which, she's also having this great moral dilemma because where do her family loyalties lie? Does she tell her husband? Does she just keep the secret to herself? But that's really hard to do because I'm sure the secret feels way, way too big to be holding on and too impactful to not say anything about. And then on top of all of that, we have I'm guessing she probably has some guilt about her invasiveness into her mother-in-law's email, even though it was like completely accidental. I'm sure that now she feels guilty being the person that found this out in the way she found it out. And then she has to grapple with that. I feel so bad for her. There's like a lot of layers to processing this. And there's probably not one right answer in what she could do or the ways that she could approach this moving forward. Now, if I were counseling her and she came to me with this dilemma, I'd first be just helping her parse out her basic feelings about the whole situation, helping her to understand where she actually feels and where she sits in the midst of all of this. Then I'd help her understand like what is going to be the best movement forward for your family, for you, that still aligns with your values, that you feel comfortable doing. So there'd be a lot of conversation around what makes the most sense and is going to be the least detrimental to all the relationships and help you to feel the most comfortable navigating where to go with this. And as a therapist, like, my bias in this is like, oh, you should absolutely tell the truth about this and bring this forward. But as a therapist, like, you have to recognize that bias and recognize like that's what you want out of this situation. What if she doesn't want to say anything? Then you have to support her and help her understand like the impact of that and how she's going to navigate holding on to this secret moving forward. So the ethical dilemma, does she stay silent or does she say something? And there's a few options. If she decides to tell her husband, I think it would take some assessing of how close is her husband to his mother. How emotionally reactive is he when hearing about these things? Is he a person that he's like, give me proof or I don't believe you? And if that's the case, then she's going to have to do something in order to solidify what she saw. And so there's a lot of layers to analyzing. Would he be the right person to tell? She also could directly go to the mother-in-law. That's totally an option too, especially because she views the mother-in-law as a mother. It may give her a good opportunity to have a heart-to-heart of like, hey, I saw this thing, like, we need to talk about it. And by telling the mother-in-law first, it gives her an opportunity to take responsibility. She can really get a feel for if the mother-in-law is resentful of this, if this is something that she's going to continue. Maybe this is just a part of her mother-in-law and father-in-law's relationship. Maybe they both like have flings on the side and that's the way they function and she just doesn't know that. But by confronting the mother-in-law first, she gives that mother-in-law the opportunity to take responsibility and do what she needs to do and come forward with the secret, and that way the burden's not on the original poster. But if she's defensive or even like narcissistic in her response of like, how could you, what are you doing, I think that's pretty telling too of where the mother-in-law is actually at, and could give some good information, guiding information on what to do moving forward. Her other option is to stay silent and do nothing. And there are some immediate benefits to that. I mean, it avoids the family chaos. She doesn't have to worry about her job stability or navigating new family roles. And so she could just not do anything. That does come with some consequences along the lines of what happens if her husband finds out that she knew and never did anything. Would that cause resentment and a rift between them? And carrying the weight of a secret this large can cause like emotional and psychological damage. I mean, she could just be absolutely burnt out, absolutely exhausted by having to carry this secret. And it's not fair that she should have to. So if she doesn't want to, she shouldn't. And if the original poster was like, no, I want to keep the secret, my gentle pushback would be, okay, is that something that you can do well? Can you still interact with your mother-in-law without being resentful? Can you still treat her the exact same? Can you treat your father-in-law the exact same while still holding this very significant information? Because if you can, then that's great and you can move forward and approach that how you feel best. But if you can't, it's probably not worth keeping the secret because it's just going to cause further division in your family and in your work life. So really my approach to counseling her, it would be identifying your own feelings, assessing whether telling the mother-in-law or her husband feels like the most beneficial movement forward for her, and then ultimately being able to feel at peace about one of those decisions. Final thoughts. There's really no easy answer to this one. There's a lot of routes she could take. I feel bad for her. That absolutely is going to cause some family drama for a while. And that's a lot of times why people say never work with family. So take that as you will. Okay. Let's read some comments. Top comment, this got almost 2,000 upvotes. If you're going to tell your husband, bring proof. Next comment, tell and everything blows up. Don't tell and husband finds out you knew, everything blows up. Those are your choices. I mean, that's pretty black and white. I think there's some nuance. Yes, if she does tell, everything will blow up, but the way that she can go about it, there's a lot of different ways that could result in that maybe dampen the impact and the chaos that could result from it. There is a chance that if she doesn't tell, nobody ever finds out. So this poster saying, don't tell and your husband finds out you knew, everything blows up. I mean, yeah, that's true. He could find out, but there's also the opposite is also true, that he could never find out. So another top comment, you didn't see anything. You didn't even open the computer. You have no idea what your mother-in-law does in her time off. And a lot of people agreed with this. I personally do not, because I think honesty really is the best policy, as cliche as that is. But I understand people wanting to turn a blind eye just to keep things peaceful, or they don't like confrontation. So I get that piece of it. Whew. Okay. This last story is interesting because I do think it's actually like a very big topic that has been coming up the last few years when talking about relationships, and that is mental load. And I'll get into that more, but let's read the story. How can I, 32 female, not feel resentful that I make significantly more money and I work significantly more hours than my husband, 36 male? I, 32 female, have been married for almost 7 years to my husband, 36 male. When we first got married, I made around $60K a year. We got married and I went back to school for 3 hard and stressful years where he provided financially for us, and now make about $225K a year. He makes around $85K a year. I have a highly stressful job in healthcare and work around 45 hours per week. He is very lucky and works from home, and I would say on average works 2 hours a week. I know that sounds crazy, but it's just how his job works apparently. What does your husband do? He is very sweet, and he makes my smoothie and coffee in the morning, as I have to leave pretty early for work, around 5:45. He does the grocery shopping during the day, and I ask him to clean something in the house. He'll do it without complaining. The issue is, I cannot help but feel resentful of the fact that not only do I make significantly more money, but also have to work over 40 hours a week when I know he's at home playing video games much of the day and only actually working a small part of the day. Maybe he just has to answer a few emails, for example. When I get off work around 7 p.m., he won't have dinner ready unless I specifically ask him to make XYZ on the way home from work. On top of that, certain things aren't taken care of that I wish would be without me having to specifically ask for them to be taken care of. For example, we forgot about the homestead exemption this year, so we missed out on that. Since he stays home, I wish those kinds of things were taken care of without me having to remind him. I would love to be able to stay home, especially if we were to be able to have children in the future. But the difference is, if it were turned around, I would have dinner ready for him when he got home, and he wouldn't have to ask me to do different things around the house during the day. They would just be done. This might be the difference between a man and a woman? ? I also have decision fatigue at work, so when he asks what I want to do for dinner, I kind of just wish he would say, "Hey, we're having XYZ for dinner, see when you can get here." We have talked about all of this before, but it hasn't seemed to get any better for me. I still feel resentful when I call him after a long, stressful day and ask him, "What's for dinner?" And he says, "Well, we have salmon and beef we can make. What do you want to do?" I do want to have children, but I also feel like I still will have to work full-time and make most of the decisions with them and have to do most of the childbearing. How can I not feel resentful of making money, working significantly more hours every week with a stressful job, then having to ask for things around the house to be done while he's at home? Please help, and thanks in advance. Okay, there are several psychological dynamics at play here that are contributing to her frustration and invalidation. I think there's the emotional labor, feeling like this isn't an equal partnership, and a workload balance going on here. So like I said earlier, this is a story about mental load. And a lot of women, I think, resonate with this idea, because I think men, for whatever reason, really struggle to anticipate needs and think more detailed than women do. I don't know if that's too broad of a generalization, but basically mental load is anticipating needs, making decisions, and ensuring that things run smoothly day to day. Her husband is technically contributing in the sense that he does what is asked of him. He gets the dinner ready, he'll clean if it's asked, but that's the problem, is she's consistently having to ask him to do these things instead of him observing, hey, those dishes need to get done, or dinner needs to be made for both of us because we need to eat something and my wife isn't going to do it tonight, so why don't I take on that responsibility? Psychologically, her husband is falling into learned helplessness and turning into a passive partner, in part because she has taken on the role of planner and developer and delegator. So because she's done this, it's offered him the space to just sit back, relax, and do the few things that are asked of him rather than taking an active and engaging role in their partnership. And it's pretty obvious that she feels on some level that he is living a life of ease while she is overworked and emotionally exhausted. I mean, she has decision fatigue. She works more than 40 hours a week. She has an emotionally intensive job, it sounds like. So there's going to be some resentment when she feels like she's shouldering all of this responsibility and he's doing very minimal at home and not taking steps towards making their partnership equal or developing a better routine, so to speak. And her concerns about having kids with him, totally valid. Having kids is incredibly difficult, and it already changes the dynamics in a relationship. And kids are very needy little creatures. They just are. And so if he doesn't have an ability to anticipate needs now or actively engage in the relationship and take initiative, he's probably really going to struggle to do that when they have kids. Totally valid concern. The good news is, I think that this is a really solvable issue. And it might take some tension and some time to kind of figure out the dynamics that feel like a balance between both of them, but this is very solvable. I think it starts with being able to approach household tasks and delegate and say, hey, on Mondays through Thursdays, you are in charge of making dinner. That means you plan the grocery list. That means that you make the meals and you meal prep if necessary. I don't have the emotional capacity to do so, but I know that you do, and I know that you have time to do that. And this sounds very directive. I would obviously encourage more of a conversation around it. How do you feel about making dinner Monday through Thursdays? That would be really helpful to me. And hopefully he'd be willing to say, okay, yeah, like, he's not incapable. He clearly can make dinner if he's told what to make. But I'm guessing that he can take it a step further and look up a recipe on the internet. So first step is just simply renegotiating tasks and making more sense of a balanced load. And I don't love the language of, oh, it would help me out so much if you did this thing. No, you're in a partnership. Like, it is a household you're trying to take care of. Like, there needs to be some care and intent too, and like the space that you're living in. Like, reframing that rather than like, oh yeah, that helps me out a lot when you do the dishes. That is a household chore. Like, you are working towards a partnership. And there might be things that do help her out personally. Like, yeah, Thursday nights are just, I know, the hardest because I have the hardest day because of this client or whatever. So like, I do know it personally helps me if you make dinner on Thursdays. That's fine. But using that constantly as motivation for her husband to do things, that should not be the motivator. It should simply be that like, you're in a partnership and you have a household to take care of and you should care about doing so. And I think there's an important distinction here to make too, that mind reading is not a thing. So we do have to communicate our needs and help clearly communicate what we want at certain times. But there is a distinction in that, because it shouldn't always just be constantly having to communicate needs. At some point, it should become intuitive enough that you know that you need to eat dinner every night, or that the dishes need to be done. I don't know why I keep bringing up the dishes. It's probably because I can see my sink and it's my least favorite chore to do. But regardless, there is a distinction. Like, there are times in a relationship, a partnership, where you need to communicate what you need. Or maybe this is a good example. Like, she can foresee that the next week of work for her is going to be incredibly intensive because some big event is happening at work. So that's a time where she communicates, hey, my needs are going to be really increased next week because I'm going to have way less emotional capacity and this, and this. So that's a time to communicate need, but communicating constantly what needs to be done around the house, no. I think he can do that. He's an adult. At least I hope he is. Let's read some comments. I need one of those 2-hour a week for 85K jobs. Geez. 6.5 or 6.4 upvotes. Totally agree with that. That'd be really lovely. Now, I like this top comment. Oh, I understand completely. Had the same situation with my husband. He supported me through school, and when I graduated and landed a job that was double his salary, I woke up early and came home late while he came home and had a whole day ahead of him. We spoke a lot about being passive about certain decisions in the house and came to understand we have different views on things due to differing personalities, backgrounds, and expectations that we never spoke about. Dinner was one of those different views. You could give him a beer and a string cheese for dinner and he'd be happy and thankful, but I want a warm meal. Our solution was, little sparkles, the whiteboard. Sundays are our day off, so we sit around with the whiteboard and talk about and write down what the week should look like. We plan different dinner for the week, groceries, bill, cleaning, expectations for the dogs, appointments, etc. We've set an expectation that we are both active in this conversation and express desires, dreams, frustrations, and constraints for our weekly schedules and tasks. It really helped us be aligned. Now I come home and everything is seamless. I mean, I'm sure it's not that perfect, but it sounds like runs really sufficiently for their household and that really works for them. Yeah, it's crazy that something as simple as like a whiteboard that has very clearly written expectations and rules on it can really, really help a mental load, because now the whiteboard's carrying the mental load, not one individual, and both people are contributing to that mental load on the whiteboard. So it's very lovely, and I really like this suggestion and idea. Yeah, the rest of the comments really just say like, talk to him, have a good conversation with him. But I wanted to bring up that story because I think it's so relatable. I do think that there are a lot of partnerships that don't feel equal because one person carries more of the mental load than the other person. And every relationship is different in what that looks like. Some people are comfortable. I can carry 70% of the load and you carry the other 30%. And other people are like, no, I want it 50-50 and that's the way it needs to be. So it really depends person to person, but I think this is worth talking about and I think it's worth bringing up and recognizing. Well, I think that's it for today. I really enjoy getting to do my Reddit videos. It's fun to talk through. Maybe one day I'll do a podcast. That would be so fun. But as for now, I'm really excited to keep growing my channel. I appreciate any support, whether that's a like, a comment, a sub, whatever it is. If you have a theme for Reddit videos that you would like to see, drop a comment. Love to hear it. That's it for today. I will see you all soon.